Welcome. Let's take a look now at some of the events to watch out for the week starting Monday, the 14th of November. And as we start out the new week, we begin on Monday for the economic calendar with Eurozone industrial production. Then it's US consumer inflation expectations, which comes after that slightly weaker number than we had been expecting in the last week, which saw that dollar fall back so far. We've got some data coming out early doors in the Asia Pacific region. To begin with, we have Japanese third quarter GDP growth, Australian minutes from the last RBA rate meeting, UK unemployment at 7 o'clock in the morning, third quarter GDP in the Eurozone. We've already seen the UK number come in a touch better than had been expected, but nonetheless it is contracting, which according to many is going to be the first of at least 2 quarters of negative growth or contraction, which means by the end of the year, it's widely expected the UK will be in recession. Will that be the case for the Eurozone? German ZEW economic sentiment also out on Tuesday morning, could be an interesting number to watch out for. UK consumer prices on the midweek trading session, along with producer prices and retail prices. We've also seen the UK Central Bank, the Bank of England, raising interest rates because of this rise in consumer prices. It's widely expected we'll see those CPI numbers continue to trade up. Unlike some of the other areas around the world where we are beginning to see some easing back on the CPI data. US retail sales, industrial production and the housing markets data out in the States later on, along with the weekly EIA crude oil inventories. Let's skip on to the 17th, Thursday, get early numbers out from Japan, we get trade balance data and the unemployment rate in Australia. Then as we kick into the major part of the European trading day, we're looking ahead to the fiscal statement from Jeremy Hunt, the new Chancellor of the Exchequer, going some way, as he has already done, to, let's call it, repair some of the damage that had been done by the previous Chancellor of the Exchequer. US building permits and housing starts, initial jobless claims as well, the weekly figures out at 1:30 p.m. on Thursday UK time. Early on Friday morning, Japanese consumer prices. UK retail sales at 7 o'clock in the morning could also be interesting. US existing home sales and the weekly Baker Hughes recount rounds us off. As ever, on the week, Chris Beauchamp is with us with his thoughts on what to watch out for. There's clearly a lot of data out next week, Chris, and of course in the wake of what we've seen in the US on consumer price inflation pulling back a little bit, it's certainly been interesting to see just where some of this economic data points out to next week. What's your choice with a trade?
Well, it's a UK heavy week as well, really, with those CPI numbers, retail sales, unemployment figures, and that long-awaited fiscal statement that's been moved around more times than I care to remember. But from the current Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, expecting obviously the catalogue of tax rises and spending cuts, a fairly gloomy outlook as the government tries to regain market confidence, really, is how they're framing it. If we get sort of further strength in inflation, which will come at an interesting time just as US inflation perhaps begins to ease back a touch, it certainly could give perhaps a lift to the pound in the short term. And that is indeed what we're seeing at the moment. It's a story of dollar weakness, really, in the wake of yesterday's inflation print. You saw the pound rally from that September low down below 105 down towards 103, in fact, and continue to gain. And yesterday took it to its highest level since the middle of September. It looks like we're in for a period of dollar weakness because everyone's changing their expectations on what the Fed will do in December and beyond. And that's given currencies like the pound scope to rally against the dollar probably over the medium term, to be honest with you. So I think, barring some kind of nasty surprise in terms of maybe weak inflation or a shocking unemployment reading, I think we'll see the pound continue to make headway against the dollar. So while it's relatively elevated in the short term after that big jump yesterday, it looks like we've got a bit of at least a short-term trend change here. And whilst the key for the past 6 to 8 months here has been sell the rally, it looks like we have a sustained risk rally here in common with things like the euro and stocks that should see the pound push back towards, I should think, 120 and higher for the next few weeks.
Okay, Chris, thanks so much indeed. Let's take a look at the corporate agenda. And as we wind down from the third quarter earnings season, we don't have an enormous amount, but what we do have is actually quite interesting. We got Vodafone numbers out, first half earnings, first thing on Tuesday morning. We have nothing of any consequence on Monday. Imperial Brands gives us the full year numbers. Walmart on third quarter earnings. Now, Walmart is interesting stock because it has so much online business now, as well as bricks and mortar. So we'll get that before trading opens on Tuesday morning in the States. It's an all session stock, so you can trade that outside of hours. Home Depot as well, out with numbers before the bell on its third quarter. Let's take a look at the midweek trading session. Wednesday 16th, we begin with British Land at 7 o'clock in the morning, first half numbers. Premier Foods also on first half. Nvidia after the bell on Wednesday. This was my risk event of the week, where I'm looking to see a further bullish momentum in shares for Nvidia, but there could be an opportunity to sell this, and that could come with the outlook from Nvidia, which I'm expecting to be somewhat less encouraging perhaps maybe than might be now being priced in. Target third quarter earnings. Cisco also on third quarter figures out on Wednesday. And for Thursday, International Distribution Services, Royal Mail is what I still know it as. First half earnings. Burberry first half as well. Siemens and ThyssenKrupp on full year numbers, both contributing to potential movement on the German DAX on Thursday morning. Chris is back with us with his choice of a stock to watch next week. What are you focusing in on?
Burberry is an interesting one to watch, I think, at the moment. It's rare to find a FTSE 100 stock that's positive for the year. BP and Shell, two of them rather, but you've also got Burberry up 8% actually for the year. So far, really a lot of that coming over the last couple of days. First thing you had this morning was the report of China relaxing COVID measures, and then you had results from Swiss luxury firm Richemont, and that gave the stock a push back above the £20 a share mark for the first time since March. So a decent performance there from Burberry. So looking into its first half numbers next week, maybe there's quite a bit of good news now baked into the price at these levels. We'll wait to see whether we get perhaps a rosy outlook from them. If, as we saw this morning, China relaxing some of its restrictions, perhaps Burberry can be fairly optimistic about its performance there in such a key market. So something to watch in those numbers next week. In terms of the price, you've seen it this morning rally above its February highs at about £20.24 a share. In fact, to its highest level since August of last year. So really actually quite decent bounce in Burberry shares off the highs for the time being, perhaps looking a touch overextended, but perhaps any post-results weakness next week might be one thing to watch for a potential buying opportunity with a better risk to reward. But definitely Burberry, one of the winners so far this month and in a fairly strong position as we head into those earnings.
Okay, Chris, thanks so much indeed. One of the stocks to watch next week for the week starting Monday the 14th. I won't be around on Monday and Tuesday, but we'll be back on Wednesday. Josh will be taking the reins for the early morning call on Monday and Tuesday mornings. For more videos from us here at IGTV, join us on Twitter at IGCom, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.